Stop Doing Stupid Stuff podcast. Today, let's welcome Tim Keefe and Andreas Wieman to discuss about employee experience, insights, and strategies.
Hey everybody, this is Tim Keefe with Transform CX, and I'm here for another SDSS podcast with my co-author of the bestseller, Stop Doing Stupid, you fill in the blank. So Andreas Wieman is here with me again for one of our Sunday morning podcasts. Today, we'd like to talk about employee experience and maybe start with the first question. So Mr. Andreas, why does it matter?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, great question. I mean, what do the employees do at the business? They just, kind of sit around, drink some of the coffee every once in a while, and not like they, generate revenue, provide services that keep the business going. So I don't know. I can't find the logic in listening to them and holding them in a level of prominence. They're just there. They should just do the work. I'm paying them. They should just do the work. Right.
It sounded like you were describing me a minute ago, something about drinking coffee, feet up on the desk, looking out the window. No, you're right. And obviously we think this is a really important space. Both you and I have been doing this for a long time. And, we laugh about the quiet quitting conversation a year ago and how everybody was like, oh my God, people aren't delivering 100%, and you're like, really? That's like new news to you. What do you think was happening before the pandemic, right? And in ancient days, when I was with Pacific Bell, we used to call it retired in place. And it was, you could see these people, they knew exactly where the line was, right? It's the minimum that I need to do to not get fired. And most of it meant just staying out of sight.
Yeah, under the radar. That used to be a saying, under the radar.
Yep. And so, yeah, go ahead.
Obviously I was kidding at the beginning of the opening there. It's the employees are the most important piece of the business. I mean, you can rationalize that, the CEOs, the managing directors, et cetera, are there to be decisive and give guidance, but really give guidance to who? It's to the people, right? Yep. The frontline workers in a lot of cases. And so the business really needs to revolve around supporting the frontline managers and those frontline employees. And you got to start by listening to them, evaluating what is the level of productivity that you're getting objectively, what is the level of productivity that you're getting. And if you establish a baseline there, if you introduce something new that's intended to be employee centric, right? Like you throw a foosball table in a common room or something like that in the office, go figure out, don't just look at, okay, well, I see I'm walking by it, no one's there. I'm walking by it 2 weeks later, no one's still there. Or I'm walking by it and there's a whole crowd of people there. Like, what is the measurement after that? Like, once you've introduced something that's new, how have you baseline? How have you measured what the impact of that is? Now, foosball table is, very 2 decades ago, but you got to have that kind of logic of introducing something that you can measure and then see how your employees respond. I mean, you got to listen to them. You got to hear what they're telling you. A lot of them are kind of afraid for, honestly, reasons that they kind of sometimes create in their own mind. Regardless, you're not listening to your people. You're not getting feedback from your people. That's going to help you cultivate a better culture and better productivity and environment that's all symbiotic.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, just recently we were having a conversation, here at Transform CX, we sell a product called BalanceWise IQ, which is all about implementing a tool, a pulse check tool for companies to actually listen to their employees. And one of the questions, here's what we were on with an HR leader for this company. And she was great. This sounds really interesting. It's anonymous, right? And I said, well, it can be, but if you don't have the ability to actually respond to an individual employee, how do you help that individual employee? And her immediate response was, it has to be anonymous because in our organization, we have a culture of retaliation. And I was just floored. And I don't think she was defending it. She just was like, that's what it is. And you're just like, wow, And so you're sitting there thinking to yourself, wow, first off, who's working with your customers? Usually not the executives, right? They
Right.
generally don't on a day-to-day basis interact with your customers. So maybe we should find ways for the people who do the work to tell us how they could do it better or what's not working. And the second part of that then becomes, okay, we create this voice. How do we listen to it? Do we have the right skills and the right way and the right tools to absorb this feedback in a way that's, information based or data based rather than emotional? Like, look, I've been doing this for
emotional,
yeah. Well, and we're humans, right? It's a natural thing. I just the other day I was in something and that I volunteered for. It was like a management evaluation or leadership evaluation thing. And I wasn't perfect, or at least I wasn't perfect in what I thought the profile of perfect should have been. And I got really kind of internally, I realized I was kind of getting angry about it. Like, what the fuck, And I'm like, that's not the right thing to respond to.
We're going to have to bleep that out.
No, nobody cares. Our huge audience. They're probably using that same word right now, saying it like, as in, what are they talking about? But, so I think to your point, it's like, great, we can move the suggestion box, right? Now I'm going to take ancient history, but remember when we used to have suggestion boxes and they became electronic suggestion boxes, they were actually kind of cool. People could put in complaints, which hopefully people responded to, or they could make positive, upbeat suggestions. But now we don't even really do that anymore. I mean, we have social media channels, a good HR team maybe has a real ombudsman's office, but most of them, it's like a very passive. If you have something, bring it to us and we'll be a safe place for you to have, answer your response. Nobody believes that, right? For a second. Most organizations, they go, HR is not on my side. HR's job is to keep the company from getting sued. That's what they get paid for.
Their protection. Right. No, I agree. And I think it's also that concept of, and I see this with a lot of clients I work with, they relate it back to that same suggestion box type of activity. What I'm talking about, and I think what you and I have actually talked about, it's not that. The frequency is much, much more higher than just waiting for an anomaly, waiting for something to drop in there, or doing an annual survey or something like that. And so I think a lot of companies, they throw out initiatives and then they pat themselves on the back saying, oh, well, we did an annual employee survey. So we got all the feedback and people said we need to pay them more. So we'll look into seeing if we can pay people more.
We gave everybody everybody got a 1.5% increase in a period of time where inflation is running at 8%.
Exactly.
Not so how well that goes. But again, to your point, it's very anonymous. It's very trend, like what's the top 5 trend. And it's, for most employees, it's again, what are you trying to accomplish by listening to the employee? And I think depending on the company, depending on the culture, it could be a couple of things. One, there's a very real business problem of employees who leave voluntarily that you don't want to leave, right? That you need them there to do that job. And when they walk out the door, of course, one, there's nobody doing the job. Now you're putting more stress on other employees because they got to pick up the load, and you're incurring the cost to go find a replacement and train them and everything else. And the numbers on early stage attrition are staggering. And, not to get into some industries, but, I've heard numbers better than 50% in the first 90 days of employment. And these are in professional jobs. I'm not talking about fast food workers, where 10 cents an hour and they move on down the street. I'm talking about engineers, even, people with professional degrees. And they're very, very difficult to find, especially in a return to work model, because now you're restricting your hiring pool to within 30 miles or whatever of that building that you want them to return to. So, that's one problem, right? That's a very real financial problem that a company can go. There's a cost associated with unanticipated attrition. There's the other side of the equation, which is, I want my employees to be able to do a better job And by doing a better job, they serve our customers better, which has a knock-on effect, hopefully, of improved business outcomes, whether that's growth
Exactly.
or customer retention or basket size or sales effectiveness or whatever. I mean, we're doing a lot of automotive stuff, and it's kind of like quality of repairs is a freaking problem, right?
Yep.
Because people are tremendous pressure to move vehicles through a repair shop, and are they doing it right? And how many times does an owner have to bring the vehicle back? Like what we used to do in a contact center, the old repeat call problem. Yeah, we answered, the call was great, short handle time, quick speed to answer, and guess what? Customer was so frustrated they had to call back 6 times on the same issue. Yeah.
Well,
I don't think
think
we
about
want
the customer experience in that, the cost in that, and having to pay for that same interaction twice, right? If you're the business, and the level of satisfaction that customer feels like they're being applied to. You got 2 people in that situation: the frontline person who's trying to help the customer and obviously didn't, so the customer had to call back, so they're probably feeling like they're a cog in the big machine. And then the customer likewise is, man, I got to call back 6 times. It's not like I got anything else important going on today. Let me just figure out how I can spend 3 or 4 hours trying to get my problem resolved. They feel like a cog in the machine. So it's kind of, we put a lot of centricity around listening to the customer, and rightfully so. But for whatever reason, I think we've lost the level of importance to listening to employees. And again, not just in a survey type of way, just all around in the business. And with the technology we have today and the way that we can capture data and thoughts and ideas, just think about if you talk to your employee once a week and they, fill out how they're feeling about, how this week went, what was the best interaction that they had, getting some subjective feedback that allows you to tie back into the objective outcomes that you're looking for, rather. There's a way that you can analyze all of that, standardize all of that in together to create a baseline, and then introduce something based off of the feedback that you're getting and see what kind of improvement, or maybe it doesn't drive an improvement. But listening to the employees, that's going to go a long way with them. And the whole goal in my mind, Tim, you got to get people to be self-motivated. It can't be, well, I'm negatively self-motivated because I'm going to get in trouble or I'm going to get fired if I don't do this. It's more about how can we get them to a state of mind that says, I want to do this because I'm motivated to help people. I'm motivated to earn that bonus, which is derived from helping people and helping customers. We got to figure out how you get that self-motivation factor in there, because not only do companies save a lot of money, but that's how they do not get stagnant or complacent, and make sure that the employees feel valued in reciprocating with new programs and ideas based off of the feedback that they're providing, and they're not afraid to provide that feedback. And it's very cyclical in nature, but very symbiotic.
Well, and I think you're hitting a really powerful point, which is now if we create this channel, a voice channel for our employees, do we have the right supervisory and management and organizational skills to listen effectively to that voice? There's an old joke in the Navy or in the maritime industry, which is when the crew stops bitching, then you got a real problem, because then there's a mutiny in the coming. Because people need to feel that they have that opportunity to speak. Now, we also know that with a lot of the younger generation, for me, which is everybody's younger, but the younger generation, they've grown up in an environment that's much more mutually supporting, positive reinforcement, and engaged, because they're constantly engaged through their digital devices in ways that are completely different and unique. And we have to recognize that environment as managers and employers, that we want those people to be effective in the work that they're doing. So I'd love to follow this up. I think both you and I are at a place where we can say, we got to listen, right? However that is. I don't care if it's the box where people can drop off suggestions, or it's a proactive tool like BalanceWise IQ, or, you have daily stand-up meetings with your team, but listen and make people feel that it's safe to speak, is the problem number one. And I think in our next session, let's talk about what it means to be on the receiving end of that feedback and what do you do about it.
No, great. And just do something, start listening to your people, find a way to start listening to your people. Trust me, it's free advice. I'm not going to charge you for that. Just appreciate you listening to the podcast. Start listening to your people.
Start listening to your people. I don't want to listen to you, but we'll listen to our people. Anyway,
oh, wow.
As always,
all
sir.
Right. I don't know about
that was a cheap
next
shot
podcast
early on a Sunday morning.
Well, it's funny. You'll be imitating my voice on the next podcast. No, I'm kidding.
All right, sir. As always, thank you very much for joining. And for those who listen, really appreciate it. I'd love to please subscribe. We'll be moving over to, I think, a different channel here, and we'll be seeing us on a regular basis. So there'll be a weekly podcast for SDSS. This is Tim Keefe with Transform CX.
Andreas Wieman. Appreciate the listen. Thanks, and let us know what you think in the comments.